So, how does a kid who was told he was too small, too fragile, maybe even too weak to ever play football become, well, arguably the greatest player in the history of the sport? That is the incredible story of Lionel Messi. It's a journey that honestly seems impossible, like something straight out of a movie. Let's get into it. This quote from one of his very first coaches, it just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the whole paradox of Messi. Just looking at him, you'd think, no way. He was the ultimate underdog from day one. But then you saw him with a ball at his feet, and everything changed. He wasn't just good, he was, like his coach said, a straight-up phenomenon. So let's rewind. Let's go all the way back to where it all began. We're in Rosario, Argentina. And we're talking about a childhood defined by a massive challenge, one that almost ended his dream before it ever really got started.
Okay, so get this. At just 10 years old, Messi gets diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency. The treatments were incredibly expensive, way more than his family or his local club could afford. So they took this huge gamble, a trial with FC Barcelona in Spain. The club's directors were hesitating. Signing a small 13-year-old foreign kid with a medical condition is a huge risk. But the first team director, a guy named Carlos Rexach, he saw the genius. He famously grabbed a paper napkin and literally wrote out a contract right then and there because he refused to let this kid slip away. That napkin is now a legendary piece of sports history.
And that napkin contract? Well, it kicked off a 17-year career at Barcelona where Messi didn't just play, he completely redefined what was possible. He became the undisputed king of that club, building an absolute footballing dynasty around his talent. Let's just look at some of the insane numbers he put up. The numbers are just staggering. 672 goals. Now, that's not for his entire career, that's for a single club. In today's game where players move around all the time, this record is just a monument to his loyalty and his insane, decade after decade consistency. And then there's this number, 91. 91 goals in one single calendar year. To put that in perspective, most world-class strikers would be thrilled to score that many in like 3 or 4 seasons combined. Messi did it in one. It's a peak of individual performance so high, it's honestly hard to imagine we'll ever see it broken. And this right here might be the ultimate measure of just how great he is. 8 times, 8 different years, he was officially recognized as the single best player on the entire planet. The next closest player in history has 5. This isn't just a record, it's absolute domination. But here's the thing, he wasn't just doing it for himself. His personal brilliance led to unbelievable team success. He was the heart of that legendary Barcelona team, and with them, he collected a mind-boggling 34 trophies. He won absolutely everything, again and again and again. But for all the sunshine and trophies in Barcelona, there was this shadow that followed him. A really painful conflict that defined the first big chapter of his career. And that was the immense, almost suffocating pressure of playing for his home country, Argentina. See, back in Argentina, there was really only one measure of greatness, a guy named Diego Maradona, the fiery, passionate icon who led the nation to World Cup glory back in 1986. So no matter how many trophies Messi won in Spain, for a lot of people back home, he'd never be Maradona's equal, until he delivered that same ultimate prize. And oh man, he came so close. In 2014, he basically dragged Argentina all the way to the World Cup final in Brazil. They were just one goal away from glory, and then they lost to Germany in extra time. It was an absolutely devastating blow. You think it can't get worse? But the very next year, he's in another final. This time, it's the Copa America, South America's biggest tournament. And again, pure heartbreak. They lose to Chile in a penalty shootout. And unbelievably, it happened again. Just 1 year later, a third major final in 3 years, and a third loss. Again to Chile, again on penalties. This pattern of agonizing defeat just seemed like a curse he couldn't break. And that was the breaking point. He was visibly crushed by the weight of it all, and he announced his retirement from the national team. For a moment, it really seemed like that was it. His international story was going to end in tragedy, as the champion who just couldn't conquer that final mountain. But the story wasn't over, not even close. The entire nation of Argentina basically begged him to come back, and he did. He came back for one final chapter, a quest for redemption that would ultimately lead him to immortality. And he did it. He actually did it. First, in 2021, he broke the curse. He led Argentina to the Copa America title, the nation's first major trophy in 28 long years. And then came the ultimate prize. In 2022, he captained Argentina to a dramatic, unforgettable World Cup victory, the country's first in 36 years. He had finally reached the summit. He'd completed football. And listen, he didn't just win it, he completely owned that tournament. 7 goals, including 2 in what might be the greatest World Cup final ever played. He was named the best player of the tournament, the Golden Ball winner, for a historic second time. He wasn't just along for the ride, he was the one driving the bus. And with that one final, crowning achievement, the entire conversation shifted. All the arguments and debates that had followed him his whole career, they started to quiet down. His place in the pantheon of sporting gods was secure. For over a decade, the biggest rivalry in all of sports was Messi versus Cristiano Ronaldo, 2 absolute titans with totally different styles. You had Messi, the creative genius, the playmaker, and Ronaldo, the physical specimen, the goal-scoring machine. That debate's probably going to rage on forever, but when you look at the trophy case, Messi's 8 Ballon d'Ors to Ronaldo's 5. And that World Cup trophy, well, it gives him a pretty definitive edge. And then there was the ghost of Maradona. Where Maradona was fiery and outspoken, Messi was quiet and reserved. But by winning that World Cup, Messi finally did the one thing that had always separated them. He not only matched Maradona's greatest achievement, but he did it his own way, finally stepping out of that massive shadow. And when you just zoom out and look at his entire body of work, the numbers are just undeniable. 46 major team trophies. That is more than any other player in the history of the game. He has won everything there is to win. Period. Which brings us right back to the final question. From the boy who was told he was too small to the most decorated player ever. He conquered his health condition, he conquered club football, he conquered the weight of his entire nation, and he finally conquered the world. After a journey like that, what more is there left to prove?